So
Shifting our focus from PlayStation, and I want to move a little to Nintendo. I just want to know, we got the recent announcement of the Steam Deck. And I said we're shifting from Nintendo, and then I'm going Valve. I just want to know real quick, how do you feel about the Steam Deck right now? Are you believing?
I think it's really cool. Yeah, I'm a begrudging believer because part of me still wonders. I mean, IGN did their preview and they're like, I know the D-pad looks weird, but it feels fine. And I'm like, well, it does look weird though.
It
I
does.
don't know, but like, it probably does feel fine. I'm like, I feel like Bo knows what he's talking about. Like, it probably feels fine.
Yeah.
I think it's an awesome concept. I mean, that's the number one reason that I don't play on PC during my leisure, because I'm like, the thought of just sitting here, like I just tab out of like my work and I'm like, all right, we're just gonna be here again. Is not appealing to me, and I prefer like controller or keyboard. Like I just am a console player through and through. So making that like an indie machine, I feel like it could be like, obviously the machine itself is expensive, but putting that part aside for a second, there's so many sales that happen on PC, like and like Humble Bundle stuff that like really just drives down price. Like, you can get such great deals. That's why so many people have like these huge Steam libraries.
Oh yeah.
Without even trying. So I think that's really cool. I haven't ordered one yet, mostly because I'm gonna wait because I don't think I like want it that badly. Like I just don't know when I'm gonna find the time to really utilize it.
Right.
I tell the story all the time, but I got the Oculus Quest. Very excited. I do love VR. I'm here for VR. I'm trying to support in the community. I have PSVR. I'm gonna get PSVR too, but I admittedly have not beaten one game on Oculus Quest, and I got it I only got it like last year. I know it's so bad. Like it was a fun time. Like I'm sharing it with my boyfriend. Like we bought it as like our anniversary gift.
Nice.
Like okay, we're gonna hang out, play VR all day, and it's like all right, we're doing Beat Saber, and then we're like climbing in it gets super fun, but it's just like something about it. Like I don't know, I gotta clear the space in the room, and then I gotta put the batteries into. I don't know. Like y'all know how it is. It's really hard to keep up with games. So I'm like, I just don't see me after my long day of console playing and streaming and doing all that I'm going to sit down with my Steam Deck and beam through all these games. Like I'm going to just wait a little bit on it. But I think it's an awesome, piece of hardware. And I would be surprised if I don't end up getting one eventually. I just don't think I might not be in that first wave. But even as I say that, every day I get closer to looking, and I've gotten to the input your card and information screen, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to jump to 500 right now. So I'm waiting.
So I think and for me right now, I have PS5, Series X, Nintendo Switch. I have not touched my Switch in a very long time. But when I think of my Nintendo Switch, I think of it as my indie machine. And
same.
So with the Steam Deck, I when I think of Steam, I do think a lot about indies, because there's a lot of games that do come to Steam before they reach consoles, because that's kind of like, I don't know how you would say it, like their testing ground, I guess. You look like you want to say something.
Just like, it's where the stuff starts. Like, and even if it's not Steam, like itch.io is like, if you only play console, like you will always be late when it comes to like indie games. Like that's just true, you know?
That's true. And so I wonder, do you think the Steam Deck it is expensive. I do get that. And I know there's people now that are already, if you want to jump in, you're not going to get it to like, what is it, Q4 of 2022? Q3 of 2022?
Q2 or Q3. Q3 for the most expensive SKU.
Okay. And so
hopefully.
Yeah, right. And so I wonder, do you think it's possible, if this does well, do you think it's possible that this can kind of overtake the indie machine?
I think for people in like our really tiny bubbles, yes. But I think for like significantly moving the needle, no. Only because the Steam Deck does not have Mario. That's like the short answer. And then the long answer is, I mean, think about how many people that play Nintendo that have a Switch that don't even know what Steam is.
Right, right.
Like I think it's just, and then price point, of course, and then also like ease of use. Like it does have the dock and the way to like connect it to the TV and stuff. So it basically is like the it's PC gaming's take on the Switch, because it literally is like a PC Switch, even though, it is a portable PC, so it's not like the same ins and outs of the Nintendo Switch, but I think they still serve very different markets. And I think a lot of people that have a Switch, like it's an indie machine if you are like really into games or really open-minded, because I think there are like casual players who are like, someone on TikTok told me that if I like Animal Crossing, I should play this cute indie game,
Right.
and I downloaded it,
Mhm.
and it's great. And
Right.
and I hope that I hope a lot of people are having that experience, because like indies are awesome. But I think most people, don't play indies in that way. And yeah, if you have a PC too, the Steam Deck's weird because it's for PC people that hate their PC, because like that's the only, when I talk to PC players, they talk about these really powerful rigs and having all this like the mouse and keyboard and all that. Like I feel like it's for a really specific niche market that's still probably very profitable, but
Right.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's a replacement of the Switch by any means. But I don't know. I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again, so we'll see.
Yeah, I also have trouble like wrapping my mind around who this is for. Like there are a lot of people excited for it for like different reasons, but I'm like, is it just meant to be like this catch-all thing where we think these people are going to like it for this, those people are going to like it for this? Like there are a lot of people that are talking about like, yes, now this is the handheld that does third-party support well. Or like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, this kind of is like the indie machine that I would like portably. Um, so yeah, I don't know either.
And
That's all.
I wonder. So Janet, were you disappointed with the OLED Switch model reveal?
Short answer, yes. Long answer is it's no one's fault but my own. So what
Yeah.
are we gonna do?
Yeah. I think
Oh,
the
man.
last XP podcast, I kind of went over like how Nintendo works. Like if you look at how many different iterations of the DS, Game Boy, 3DS there's a ton. And this is in line with everything that they're doing. And so I'm kind of shifting focus to Nintendo. Are you happy with where Nintendo's at right now? Or is there something that you want to see from them kind of, do you want to see more from them? Like, or do you think they need to kick it into high gear? What do they need to do?
Yeah, I want to see a lot more from them. I'm kind of annoyed. I mean, again, I love Nintendo, and like we all have our down years, like in terms of output. I remember one E3, Nintendo was just like, we have basically nothing, or they didn't show. I can't remember if they didn't show up or they just showed up with like a really whack presentation, and they were just like, we're waiting for. It was like before Breath of the Wild was really ready to show. They were like, I mean, we're just kind of gearing up for the next thing, so we really don't have anything, and they just didn't. And then it was over. It was really awkward.
Man.
And yeah, that happens sometimes. So it kind of comes with the terrain. But yeah, I'd like to see a like more powerful hardware. I get that it could only ever get to like the power of like a PS4, like a bad PS4, but that's still way more powerful than what we have now. I want to play Animal Crossing and not have it stutter. I want more. I want more and better support for ongoing games. I feel like Splatoon kind of got awkwardly left tongue out to dry in some ways, where they're like, "Final Splatfest." Just kidding. Also now Splatoon 3, but also not for a while, and that's all we have to say, which is kind of weird. Mario Kart. I think they have so much potential for doing like more with existing IPs. Like Mario Kart had that one DLC and then nothing else, and now that's known as Deluxe and doesn't have anything else. Mario Maker could be so good if you let us search properly for things, or if you like just put more, again, community emphasis into it. I'm like, there's no reason this shouldn't be the biggest game in the universe forever. It's a Mario game where you can make other Mario games. That sounds awesome. Like and not that they failed at that. It's a fantastic game. Mario Maker 2 is great. I'm glad it exists, blah, blah, blah. But it just feels like even when they knock it out of the park, there's so much more they could do. And then they have a bunch of other obvious failings, like Nintendo Switch Online is like, if Game Pass is the best deal in gaming, Nintendo Switch Online is the biggest scam in gaming, because I'm out here paying to go online once every 8 months when I decide to play Splatoon, or I guess to get mail in Animal Crossing from people sometimes. I get like really infrequent games. I get a weird number of games. I get games no one cares about. There's not the option to buy those games either, which my brother had pointed out. Like on, Game Pass, you could buy those games that you get, or like with like PS Plus. Like I guess you don't have those games after your stuff expires, right? Like the license doesn't go. So I guess that's kind of synonymous, but it's just like, I don't know, man. Like it had the virtual console, we'd been asking for that since the console came out. I don't think that's ever happening. That would be awesome. They did all that weird stuff with like the Mario 3D All-Stars where they like don't sell it anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's the list of ways I've been wronged by this company is like a lot. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of a ridiculous amount. And again, I still absolutely love Nintendo. I think at the end of the day, they're like, it don't matter because we make Breath of the Wild, and
Yep.
that's kind of true. Like
Right.
they
Oh
have
my
the
gosh.
sauce, and they know they have the sauce, and I feel like as a result, um, I just wish they did. I don't want to say tried harder because I feel like it sounds very dismissive, but there's so many obvious failings compared to like what the market has deemed as acceptable, and they just get away with not doing cool things with that.
Mhm.
Like, you know,
Right.
and it's just like, damn,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish more powerful hardware, better online support. And then also there's no games out this year, but
Yeah.
that happens, I guess.
There's just so much that they're like obviously holding back on. Like obviously holding back on. Where's Metroid Prime trilogy? Where's
Remember
Wind
that
Waker
Pikmin game?
HD port?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
No, I didn't even remember the Pikmin game until you said it. That was announced.
You know what's funny about, well, I think technically someone asked, like, is it done? And they're like, yeah. And then, like, that's it. Like, you know,
They're
the
like,
Bayonetta game, what happened with that?
yeah,
But what's funny
totally
about
done.
the Pikmin thing, because Pikmin 3 Deluxe is the one that's out, right? Or Pikmin 4 is the one that's, like, in the wind.
Yes.
I had played, and my boyfriend, like, follows games, like, to a decent capacity and, like, plays a lot of different games. So he's, like, a pretty hardcore gamer, but, like, he's not, like, in absolutely every news story the way, like, I am because of my job. And we played Pikmin 3 together, finally, like, on the Switch, and it was my first time playing it, and we had a good time, and it was our first, like, entry in the franchise, and we both liked it. And then he asked me, man, this was really good. Like, when do you think they're going to make another one? And it was just so funny because I'm like, oh, honey, no, like that
Oh.
maybe tomorrow, maybe
Yeah.
never.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah, because they're in no position where they need to do anything. And I've been telling Rob and Austin, you know, for this whole time, I'm like, guys, we just literally expect nothing from Nintendo, and you won't get disappointed. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's like, oh look, they announced new games for Super NES Online. What are these?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I think what's interesting is, and
ugh.
I brought this up on the last podcast. I feel like they're a business through and through. They understand
Yeah.
how to operate. They really know how things work. There's a reason why we haven't received a new Metroid in a long time, because they don't sell well. And
Yep.
and everyone is hyped about the new Legend of Zelda. And I can tell you right now, Nintendo's also super hyped about the new Legend of Zelda because it sells well. If it wasn't selling well, we would not be getting any Legend of Zelda. And so it's one of those things where I'm like, they play very differently, and they don't feel bad about it, but yet we still come for it. And
Yes.
and you did make the point, like, Mario Kart, when was the last time we've had a new Mario Kart? It's been so long. It's been so long. And when you want to even dip into other franchises, it's just been so long. And
Hmm.
it's just, I'm in this place with Nintendo where I'm like, all right, I'll just wait. And I will say, for me personally, when I thought they were going to announce the next console, or when the rumors were the Nintendo Switch Pro, I didn't want to get super hyped about it, but the only reason why I kind of was like, oh, you know what? This is a smart move. If they hold it for Breath of the Wild 2, because in their mind, they'll probably be like, this game is that much more bigger and calls for more power. So we're going to give you Nintendo Switch Pro along with Breath of the Wild 2. Well, then that's how it's going to work. But then when Breath of the Wild 2 was first announced, before anything about a new Switch model, I was like, oh man, then I, at that point, at that moment, I was like, then this game, along with Pokemon Legends Arceus and anything else, they're not going to be these super strong. Again, they might be masterpieces once we jump in, and we can be thoroughly surprised. I was surprised with Breath of the Wild, but we can all agree that when you go into Breath of the Wild, there's sometimes where you're like, man, it's a little barren here and there. You know, like, they're utilizing this platform to the best of their ability. Breath of the Wild ran on Wii U, guys. It ran on Wii U. So
Yeah.
it's one of those
Yeah.
things where I'm like, okay, they can get away with this, but how much longer can they get away with this? And I think we've known that Nintendo never really sells a console at a loss. And you can kind of look at that as like, okay, you're kind of smart with the way that you do your business, but when are you going to kind of meet us with where we're at? You know, like, it always has been PlayStation and Xbox has been here, and then Nintendo's been one step back. I feel like PlayStation and Xbox are two steps up and Nintendo's two steps back, and they don't care. They're fine.
Yeah, I think definitely in terms of power, it's starting to feel that way. And like, I think the thing that's rough as like a Switch fan is the fact that as like a, like a hardcore gamer, I guess. I don't really like that phrase, but I guess, someone who keeps up with the news and like watches E3, like that's
Enthusiast.
kind of what I conceptualize like hardcore
Yeah, yeah,
as. Like I could never really just, if I really want to play like a lot of different games, I can't just have a Switch because it doesn't have the power to run any of like the third party games and any of the third party games it does get, it's like the worst version of the game by a lot. And
Uh-huh.
even sometimes with games that aren't even that demanding. Like I remember posting on, I'm in like the NVC Facebook group or whatever of
Mhm.
like NVC fans. I was there before IGN and I'm still like in that group. And I remember one time I'm like, hey, I'm interested in the Spyro collection. It's on Switch, but like, how does it run? Like, be honest. Like, I will expose you on the podcast if you lie to me. And people were like, just get it somewhere else. Maybe they got a little
Yeah.
scared because I was like, I'll expose you on the pod if you like,
Oh, yeah.
screw me over. But I think it's because the truth is like a lot of times it's like, even if it's not drastically worse, it's like a little worse. And then we'll just like, oh, but in handheld, you can't tell that it's ugly because the screen is small.
Yeah.
Like it's a rough state. And like, it is really a bummer to, every time I see a game's coming out, it's on like everything except Switch. Like that's how I always like discuss games when I talk about, oh, it's on everything but Switch, or it's on PC only, or it's never like, it's very
Mhm.
rare for a game to be like, it's on everything, even Switch. Like you kind of have to
Right.
almost note it because it's like, it's so rare for something to be there that isn't just like a Nintendo made thing. Now it kind of
Right.
works out okay because Nintendo makes some of the best games of all time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's convenient.
Yeah.
But it does really split the market for me as a player.
Is there something that you think could happen that would force Nintendo to kick into high gear? Like do the Switch Pro, finally announce like Nintendo Switch GBA online collection, and like finish porting the rest of these games that they're obviously holding on to. Is there something that could happen that would like force their hand on this stuff?
I don't think so because I think they're like really good. I think they're really well like financially. Like I don't think they're struggling in any way. I think they're like a really smart business. They've been in it forever, and if anyone drops out, like my brother was like asking me these rapid fire like questions for fun yesterday, and one of them was you have to make a game prediction for 10 years from now, and your life depends on it. What are you predicting? And I'm like that Nintendo's still making games. And then I joked that I'm like, and even if I'm wrong, it's fine because I don't want to live in a world where Nintendo's not making games. Obviously a joke. But yeah, like I think they've just, they're like, we've been here before and we'll be here after. Like they're again, I have plenty of criticisms, but they're like an incredible company in so many ways. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think the only thing that's going to get them to move is their own desire to move. And
Right.
I feel like they don't have that desire. And I'm like, why don't you have the desire though? But at the same time, hey, I mean, there's content I could put out that would probably do well that I don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I almost wonder if because of the hole that they dug themselves into, we got to the point where there was just so much hype for every single direct, and it's like, and if their, one more thing isn't like pure fire, like people are upset. It's like, are they just punishing Nintendo? I don't know. Are they like trying to reset expectations, like by just holding on to everything
Oh, like if
until
we're whack enough, no one will want anything. I'm sure not. I mean, I think they have their calendar because also the thing is like I don't think it's really possible for every company to have like a fire year every year. I think eventually like the way the cycles hit, it just doesn't end up working out. And I think that is
Yeah.
why some years we see, even just like looking at the industry as a whole, as much as there's been a lot of amazing games that I've played this year and my calendar is totally booked and I have a lot to play. When I talk to my family who are very hardcore into games, but not me, where I'm like living it every day, like really intensely. They're like, yeah, there's not a lot. I mean, like I liked Returnal or I liked Ratchet, but like, I don't know. There's not a lot for me to play. And like, obviously to me, there's a lot of stuff out, but the truth is it is a weaker year and it's a weak year across the board when there's not a really clear answer for game of the year,
Sure.
which I feel like it's kind of a spicy take. That's not to say that there's not ever arguments about it. Even the year Breath of the Wild, like won from a lot of outlets. There are plenty of people who threw out different games than Breath of the Wild, but that's the thing. There's no like unified conversation. It's not like, oh, everyone's talking about like, God of War, this other game. Everyone's talking about it's kind of like, oh, well, like, I'm like, did you play Chicory? And like, I love Chicory.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic game, but like, that's my game of the year. Someone else probably has like Hitman. Someone else probably has Resident Evil. And that's not because there's so many incredible games that we all have a lot of different answers. I think there's just there isn't that clear fire universal standout. And I
Right.
think that is a sign of like a little bit of a weaker year. As much as I like Control, I think the year that I voted for Game of the Year was a little bit of a weaker year. I don't think it would have won against the God of War
Yeah.
type thing. And again, that's fine. There's ebbs and flows. I still love my Nintendo Switch. I played it just the other day for what is it? I played Invento. It's like a puzzle game where you're a cat making bento boxes. I have a good
Nice.
time.
Nice.
It's all love. I play Animal Crossing more than any other game, but
Nice.
yeah, other than thank God that I can find something to do because you're not giving me much.
Yeah. And I feel like the only thing and I don't even know if this would even put any kind of pressure on them, but back in like the time of PS3, we would see companies make a game that's for PlayStation and Xbox, and then they will make the same game but a version for the Wii. And I again, I don't know if this would put any kind of fire on them, but I feel like with cross-gen being a thing and like a smart delivery and the ability to scale these games, I don't think that works the same way with like a Switch also much. And I think their answer to that is this whole cloud gaming. Like you can play Control on it, but through the cloud.
Right.
And so I wonder if to them they're like, hey, we don't need to worry about having a very strong box, because if these third parties want to come up to us and say, hey, we want to put your game on here, but your console's not strong enough, to be like, okay, well, put it in the cloud. And then that answers your question. So
yeah, I think and I admittedly haven't tested out the cloud stuff yet. Again,
Same.
also have gotten mixed reviews on that. I feel like a little bit more towards the negative than something like xCloud or whatever. But I mean, I think that's a solution. It's not the solution I'd like, but it is a solution. And I think one thing that's worth noting is, we've been having this conversation for a long time,
Oh,
like
yeah.
in terms of Nintendo history. Every console Nintendo fans say, do you think this is the one where we're getting more third-party support? And the answer is always no. So, obviously I don't think that means we need to stop talking about it because, joking, not joking, I'm like, well, then I just wouldn't have any content.
Yeah.
That's these things, a lot of these companies have had the same problems or strengths, Sony's still hitting hard with their first party IPs. Xbox being the youngest player in the gaming space, at least, like it's kind of like, all right, well, they're sort of, I guess, getting their footing on what they really are and what they thrive in as well. Then you see other players trying through the space, but kind of like a jump rope going, like not all of them can. A lot of them cannot jump in the
Right.
way that you would expect them to, just given the money, which I think also goes to show that it's not just about having the money or the power. Like you have to be able to make the moves and build the thing, and there's so many different like layers to it all. But yeah, I think again, we've never gotten this from Nintendo, and I think looking back, that's why I'm kind of like annoyed at myself with the pro stuff. I'm like, why did I believe any of this? Even though obviously some of it came from like really reputable sources like Bloomberg.
Yeah.
And I know there's some people that are like, the pro's still coming, like just wait. And even if it is, I'm like, you know what? Then the day it is, that's when I'll put down my money, because the truth is, Nintendo, yes, is very iterative with their consoles. They've had a bunch of 3DSs, they had a bunch of Game Boys, they've been doing that forever, but they never really had one that was significantly more powerful than the other
Right.
SKUs. They've had some exclusives right for the new Nintendo 3DS, but it wasn't like the new Nintendo 3DS was like out here running like intense stuff compared to the base 3DS. Like
Right.
it was a significant upgrade, but it wasn't like what they say the Switch Pro will be. So if it comes out, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be kind of surprised, because that would have been the first time they've done an upgrade that's that significant from a power level.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.